Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We join you today from OKC West, the cattle auction site that's being rebuilt after a devastating tornado brought the operation to a standstill just a few short weeks ago.
We were right in the middle of it.
Like most of us in Oklahoma, Bill Barnhart was glued to the TV on May 31st of this year. An EF5 tornado on the ground, the widest ever recorded in the United States, with wind speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour.
I just knew as soon as I saw that, I jumped in my car and headed this way.
OKC West, between Yukon and El Reno, one of the highest volume livestock auctions in Oklahoma and the region. On average, 5,000 to 7,000 head of cattle are run through here each week, even more during the peak sales season. Bill's first concern the night of the storm, his employees.
Everybody got out okay. They actually took shelter underneath the scales in the arena. I had a couple more guys. They jumped in one of these storm shelters that we sell, and they came out just fine. It was a Friday night. By the way, that's probably the best night this could have happened, you know, for people and cattle, and there's very little going on. And there were 7 people in the restaurant. They took shelter under a stairwell, and that part of the building was just wiped clean, and they came out just fine. It was amazing how we got through it without any injuries or fatalities.
Amazing because the giant tornado killed 22 people before it lifted back up into the sky. Livestock losses at OKC West were limited to about a dozen head. Even days later, missing sale barn cattle were spotted grazing in a nearby pasture and rounded up. But most everything else was gone.
We have a valuable business here, and our whole thought was from the get-go was to let's rebuild it. Let's see what we can do to get it back as fast as possible.
And that's exactly what they've done. Debris removal alone took 3 weeks, an estimated $2.5 million in damages.
We started from scratch. We went down to the bare slab there and just started putting it back up.
They've worked nights, weekends, and holidays. Meantime, cattle producers have had to make alternate plans.
Producers that have had to sell some cattle over this period of time since May 31st have had to incur additional expenses in transporting livestock to other sale barns in the area. And you know, that's just an added expense that comes off the bottom line and reduces producer profits.
Inside, the original arena still stands, along with most of the auctioneer's booth.
The scales, that's a big scale. It was spared. Got some remodeling going on back there. The rest of this building we had to take down to the slab. There wasn't much left of it.
In fact, Bill says they're building back better than ever. One key addition, a good-sized tornado safe room and other improvements along the way.
I think that spirit is in a lot of cattle producers throughout the state of Oklahoma. And knowing Bill like I do, it really wasn't a surprise at all. First thing he thought was how do we get this cleaned up? And then how do we get to having another auction again?
People get used to something like this in their backyard and start taking it for granted that, oh, I can load cattle this morning and in an hour be unloading them at the pens.
And unload they will. July 24th is the day OKC West will reopen. Cattle will run through the chute once again, less than 8 weeks after the storm.
We're rebuilding everything that was in that office. We're going to have a nice place to eat for people, take care of our customers. It'll be there, it'll be nicer than it was. The whole thing will be nicer than it was.
Cattle producers across the southern plains will try to make up for the last 2 years and low forage supplies by planting some of the summer annuals in order to get a large tonnage in a fairly small acreage. So these kinds of plants are of course a good idea for ranchers in that situation. We want to always caution producers that are using some of the summer annuals, and by that I mean some of the millets, forage sorghums, sorghum Sudans, Sudan hybrids. All of these are potentially capable of accumulating high levels of nitrate, especially if we have some of these real hot, dry summer days where the plants show some stress. I would encourage producers to test the forage before you cut it for hay, this and any year, because once we actually cut the plant, put it in a windrow and then in a bale, the nitrate concentration stays the same. So if we have high nitrate forage this summer, it'll still be high nitrate forage next winter when we feed it. So visit with your local county extension office. They can help you with a field test that can give you a kind of an idea if there's nitrates present in that particular field. And then if you want more detail, take some samples to the county extension office and they can send it to the forage testing laboratory here at Oklahoma State University and get you a quantitative amount of the nitrate concentration that's in those samples. Certainly, again, I want to emphasize that before you cut the hay this year, test it to make sure that we're not putting up a lot of tonnage of something that we can't feed. Hey, we'll visit with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Joining us now, our canola specialist, Josh Bashong. Josh, let's talk about this year's crop now that it's out of the field. How'd things turn out?
Well, just like our winter wheat crop, it's very variable across the state. So a lot of guys more or less hit a home run, and some guys were happy with what they got given the year we had. So a lot of guys battled the drought throughout the whole year, and some guys got some timely rains, and then those late April freezes kind of did their number on some of the areas, but overall it's fairly comparable with their wheat, and they're excited with what they got. Yields ranged anywhere from 20 to 50 bushels, so still close to average for the year, but for the year we had, we're really pleased.
Very good. Now this coming week, you've got a few good opportunities for folks if they want to learn more. Tell us about those.
Upcoming on July 17th in Enid, we're going to have our annual canola conference, kind of our big event for the year. Try to get all the growers there as we can. It's a free event for the producers. Excellent opportunity for both new and experienced growers to kind of learn something, kind of for us experts at the college and some other canola industry experts kind of share with what we learned this past year, try to give some more information to these producers for them to be more successful. So like I said, it's an excellent opportunity on July 17th in Enid. We are changing venues from the Hoover building to downtown at the Enid Convention Hall. So there's a change in location. And then also on July 18th, we're going to be down at Altus. It's more or less the same event, but just different location to try to get some more areas and growers from different areas. So July 17th for Enid and July 18th for Altus, and hopefully we can get as many farmers there as we can.
All right, good information. And if you'd like to know more about those events, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. The summer heat has finally settled in, and that means gardeners are paying more attention to watering and farmers more attention to irrigation. A map of potential plant water demand for Monday shows a lot of high numbers. In the west, over 4/10 of an inch of water for turfgrass. That tapers down to 3/10 around the yellow area on the map and on down to a 1/4 inch for most of the eastern side of Oklahoma. Plants could use over an inch within 3 days in the west and an inch in 4 days in the east. How does this compare to the long-term average? A graph of potential water demand for Hobart shows that Monday's 39/100ths was above the average for early July, with the 10-year average closer to 32/100ths. For Shawnee, Monday's water demand matched its long-term average of 2,700ths. In the east, at Sallisaw, water demand on Monday was 2,400ths, just above the average of 2,200ths. When we combine long-term average graph lines for Hobart, Shawnee, and Sallisaw, we really see the higher water demand in the west dropping slightly as we go east. Our graph also shows that we've only just begun, with the highest water demand of the summer most often in the first 2 weeks in August. Gary, summer has arrived.
Good morning. That's certainly no secret to those of us in Oklahoma, but it has turned dry once again. Now, it's not that unusual. It is summer. That's sort of a normal thing for Oklahoma, but unfortunately it's getting a little too dry once again. So let's take a look at the latest U.S. drought monitor map and see how that's impacted the picture. Now, we did see drought increase across northern Oklahoma over into Osage County and also over into southeastern Oklahoma and along the Red River. And we also saw that abnormally dry condition, or the yellow, start to spread across the state as well. So a little bit too much more drought than what we would like to see. The precursor to drought, that DO, did spread across more of the state, as I said. Still though, central Oklahoma and parts of southeastern Oklahoma still doing a little bit better. Now the reasons are pretty obvious. It simply hasn't rained much since mid-June. The statewide average since June 10th was about 1.59 inches. Now that's more than 2.2 inches below normal. Pretty drastic for summer when the heat's really hitting us. That's also about 20 to 60% of normal for that time period. So pretty dry even for summer, and similar to what we've seen the last few summers as well. So it's a little bit alarming, but not necessarily time to panic just yet. We do need rainfall. It's not impossible to get that during the summer, so we'll just have to keep hoping. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Joining me now is Jody Campeacci, our Ag Policy Specialist here at Oklahoma State University. Jody, let's talk about the events this week. On Thursday, there was a lot of flurry, a lot of debate, and then there was voting on the Farm Bill in the House. Take us through the events. What really happened there?
Well, what happened was the House decided to split the Farm Bill and split up the nutrition programs and the ag programs. And this is mostly an unprecedented event. The two programs, the nutrition and ag programs, have been together in the Farm Bill since the 1970s. So they actually decided, since they couldn't get the full Farm Bill through the House, to try to just pass the ag programs. Okay, so how does that work then with the Senate that's passed a combined bill when they go to conference? How's that going to work? It's going to get a little bit crazy, I think. The Senate may not want to look at just their bill since it only includes ag programs. So once we get into the Senate, they may actually try to put the nutrition programs back on there. And there's been some debate and some discussion about the White House wanting to veto the bill, that a lot of people just aren't that happy about just having the ag bill going through. So as we go forward, these next few weeks, there's going to be a lot left settled. What should producers think? Is there, the news right now is pretty crazy. What should they be sorting out from that? Well, there's going to be a lot of things happening in the next few weeks and the next few months. And the current Farm Bill the current Farm Bill as it was extended expires at the end of September. We don't have a lot of time left to get something done. Now, the options are obviously to pass a new Farm Bill. It's looking less and less likely for that to happen. Extend the current Farm Bill. The Senate has said that they actually don't want to extend the Farm Bill. So again, I don't know if that will happen either. The last option is to revert back to 1949 law. And again, that's obviously the last resort, and it is somewhat unlikely. Usually they will extend the Farm Bill before they'll revert back to that. There's also an option to repeal that permanent law so that that doesn't happen. But as far as what farmers need to think about, there's not a lot that can be done right now, obviously. We just kind of have to wait and see. They'll still get acre payments and direct payments if they're eligible for those this year. So most farmers in Oklahoma will be affected next year once they're eligible for commodity programs next year, if the Farm Bill doesn't pass or if it's not extended. All right, so still a lot to watch for, and I assume you'll be back with us if anything changes and we have news to report. All right, Jody Campeacci, Ag Policy Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. In the past, we've told you about how to use Play-Doh or some putty to hold a bolt into a socket, but we've got some other ideas as well.
What we have here is just a rubber band, and you can see we've wrapped it around a socket and around the bolt so you can insert it.
So it'll kind of help hold the bolt into the socket, so when you're reaching into that tight spot, you can get it started.
Now another advantage of this is if it's slick, why this rubber band gives you a little grip to help you turn that deep socket as well.
So there's a little tip on holding a bolt into your socket as you're trying to install it into a tight place. We'll see you next week on Shop Stop.
On the subject of beef, let's talk innovation. We see a lot of it on the OSU campus, but this next discovery really got our attention.
Hear that? That isn't the sound of just any steak. That is the sizzle of a steak with so much flair, it had to be called the Vegas strip steak.
The Vegas strip steak is probably the newest and perhaps last steak to be found in the beef carcass. And it's kind of a little jewel hidden down in the depths of this beef chuck. This is the primal chuck, and you can't see the muscle here. It lies immediately inside, if you will, the blade bone or the scapula.
The subscapularis muscle has traditionally been used for roasts or hamburger. But Nelson and co-inventor Tony Mata turned a slice of meat from an understudy into a headliner.
The technology we applied to that steak is nothing more than knife cutting procedures, but that has never before been performed. We've taken a portion of the carcass which was worth ground beef prices, and now we can apply that to the food service sector and increase the value of that portion of the carcass. Therefore, the total carcass is worth more dollars. That's good for producers, that's good for food service industry because they have a new menu item, and it's just a win-win everywhere.
I had the opportunity to visit the Ranchers Club here on the campus of Oklahoma State University, which currently is one of the only places in the country where you can try this new cut of beef. So how long have you been working with the Vegas strip?
A few months now. We haven't had it terribly long. We've been running it mostly as specials, just trying to kind of figure out what we want to do with it, because we want to have the Vegas strip steak. And so yeah, we've been kind of running a few different things, using it on pastas and lunch specials, that kind of thing.
Sous Chef Kyle Hennessy prepared the steak two ways for myself and Robert M. Kerr Food and Agricultural Products Center's Jim Brooks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, you're not going to be able to find this just at any restaurant right now.
Not right now. It's we're just really in the stages to where, as we get an inquiry about the Vegas strip steak, if they're interested in a presentation, we take them out. And we've had 2 presentations in the last 30 days, and the response has been very, very surprising and overwhelming, actually, by 2 chefs.
From what I understand, this is becoming popular on the East Coast and the Baltimore area and
Chicago. Yeah, there's a chef, Rick Gresh, with the James Hotel in Chicago. He was one of the first, and this is actually also being sold to some hotels and restaurants in Las Vegas. It is on the market there already too.
Okay, well, I'd say we dig in.
I'm ready.
And for more information on the Vegas Strip, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Kim Anderson, our grain marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, those latest supply and demand numbers are out. Give us a brief summary.
Well, looking at the ending stocks, starting with wheat in the United States for the year that just ended in May, 718 million bushels. Looking at for 2013-14 ending stocks to be 576 million bushels. I think that's positive for wheat prices. If you look at the world, a little over 6.41 billion bushels for last year, 6.33 billion, slightly less for next year. Corn ending stocks for this year, 729 million bushels, expected to go to 1,960 million next year, slightly higher than the trade expected there. In the world, 4.87 billion bushels last year, or for the year ending, and 5.9 billion bushels for this year.
With all that in mind, then how did the market react to this news?
Well, there was essentially no reaction to the news. The analyst came out and said, right after the report, said it's bullish for bullish for wheat. Wheat prices expected to go up. Bearish for corn and soybeans. The market didn't react at all. Corn was up a couple pennies. Soybeans were up a couple pennies. Wheat was up a couple pennies. It's just like the market blew off the July Wall Street report.
And what else then is going on in the market this week?
Well, I think the trade talk is concentrating on China. They've got some production problems over there with wheat and corn. They bought, according to the trade, maybe up to 54 million bushels of corn. The USDA is predicting their wheat imports are going to be significantly higher this next year. The value of the dollar's declined over the last week. The market's kind of happy about that. Makes our prices a little cheaper on the world. Lower soft red winter wheat production and probably lower corn production in the Western Corn Belt.
Now you also keep a close eye on the KCBT wheat prices. What's the latest there? What are you watching?
Well, I'm watching the levels. If the producer's looking at selling in the nearby, watch the September contract. The important point is $7.10. If next Tuesday is below $7.10, then we may take that back down to $6.85. If it's above $7.10, then our next target price may be $7.44. They're looking at storing it December. $7.28 is the important price. If it's below that next Tuesday, close $7.06 target. If it's above that, $7.40 for the target.
And finally, last week you advised producers to sell half now, the rest broken up in the fall and winter. Is that still your mindset this week?
It's still my mindset. I'm not as set as I'm more optimistic for prices in the fall than I was last year, and I'm basically that because of lower wheat stocks projected. I'm now a little more optimistic for fall. I may look at a third now.
Okay. Kim Anderson, we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.
As we enter the late summer months, it's time to start thinking about managing fields that you plan to dove hunt over. Oftentimes the crops that are planted for mourning dove include corn, milo, sunflower, and especially millets like proso millet or brown top millet. Remember, mourning doves do not forage very effectively through thick biomass like this, so we want to have as much bare ground in that field as possible. And there's several ways we can create that. We can mow it, disc it, burn it, graze it. Mowing is okay if you have limited biomass, but if you have a lot of litter like this after you mow, it's going to be very difficult for doves to feed in that field, or at least portions of that field. You can rake it into windrows and create the bare ground. Another option is disking. The problem with disking is you might have to go over the field a couple times to create bare ground, and also you're going to put some of the seed underground and make it unavailable. Grazing works really good, particularly with sunflower fields. The cattle will get in there and really shatter the seed off the sunflower stalks, put a lot on the ground. Probably the best option though, if you have the ability to do this, is to burn the field. While some seed will be consumed by the fire, most will not, and you'll have a nice bare ground. So those are some ways that you can manipulate your field starting in August, and by September you should have quite a few doves using that field. For more tips on managing food plots for mourning dove or other wildlife species, we've recently created a food plot guide for the Southern Great Plains, and you can find that on the website.
Finally today, a young woman who is following her dream of owning her own business and inspiring others along the way.
Whiskey Creek.
Casey Brandon is a small-town Oklahoma girl who grew up on a farm. A few years ago, she had some creative ideas that turned into this.
It's a lot of fun, and I love it.
A popular clothing and accessory store in Stillwater. She has another one in Ponca City.
I would definitely say it's kind of a style of who I am and how I like to decorate and the things I like.
Those things and that style are called Oklahoma chic. And as for the name, Whiskey Creek,
there really is no awesome story about it, but it's very catchy and a lot of people remember it.
Couple that with a lot of hard work, ups and downs along the way, and those rewarding moments helping customers.
It's like that aha moment that they're like, oh my gosh, I love this so much and I have to buy it. That's what keeps me motivated.
And that's what makes her successful. And that same spirit is what's behind the upcoming Women in Agriculture and Small Business statewide conference.
It's a really great time for women to get together, network, and learn from industry professionals. We offer 3 tracks: agricultural, alternative enterprises, and business and finance. And so from each of those tracks there are concurrent sessions that are offered. So ladies can choose in the morning a session from the agriculture track, and then in the afternoon if there's something that looks appealing in the business and finance track, we encourage them to attend that session.
The conference is August 8th and 9th at the Moore Norman Technology Center on South Penn in Oklahoma City. Registration is $50, which does include meals and an evening reception. There will be guest speakers, along with a mini mall of Made in Oklahoma products and a chance to learn from other women.
Bringing them together, allowing them to learn and network from each other, see what works for them, what may not be working, and it's really great.
The goal? To empower the women of rural Oklahoma, women just like Casey Brandon, who often gets questions about how she does it all.
It's your business, it's your life. You are not going to make money unless you work hard at it. So,
just like farming, right?
It is, just like farming.
For more information on the Women in Ag and Small Business statewide conference, just go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu. That does it for us this week. From OKC West in El Reno, where sales resume July 24th, I'm Lyndall Stout, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.